Hello everyone. In today's episode, we are going to talk about a category that many people apply for as a basis to request temporary residency in Argentina. This category is for people who support their stay in the country with their own resources brought from abroad or the income those resources generate or any other lawful income from external sources. If they meet the requirements, they can be granted a residency for up to 3 years in the country. It is important to clarify that what I'm explaining is based on what the immigration law and its corresponding decree states. The law allows any income as long as it's lawful, obviously, to support this category. However, the National Immigration Directorate, in what we believe is an act contrary to the law, significantly restricts what the regulations allowed and, through a provision, decided that the income the applicant receives abroad from employment activities would be excluded. Regarding this controversial decision, we will just mention that the National Immigration Directorate has the authority, granted by law, to regulate all matters related to immigration issues. But that authority cannot contradict the letter of the law. If the regulation states that the state can be supported by any income from abroad as long as it's lawful, the Immigration Directorate does not have the power to issue a provision that goes against this. This is very important because requests for residency under this category continue to be filed by applicants who, for example, work remotely abroad and wish to live in Argentina with the earnings from their work activities. For those people, please keep in mind that initial immigration will reject these requests. Naturally, in such case, the issue could be contested in court, and in that case, the competent judge will need to assess whether the decision made by the immigration complies with the applicable regulations. Now, moving away from this specific situation, which we address because it's commonly encountered, we will focus particularly on those who can, without challenge from the Immigration Directorate, meet the requirements of this category. The regulation foresees three possible scenarios. The first is that the applicant supports their stay with their own resources brought from abroad. In this case, we are talking strictly about money. The applicant will need to bring in the total amount of capital necessary to cover their entire stay in Argentina. The other option provided by law is that the stay is supported by the income generated by certain resources. In other words, if the applicant owns property abroad, they can support their residency in Argentina with the income generated by renting out those properties. Finally, as mentioned earlier, any other type of income is allowed as long as it's lawful. There are a few things to clarify here. First, the applicant must prove the origin of the funds in their application. Remember, we are talking about income, and this income has a source. It's the source that needs to be proven. For example, if the category is based on income from renting out property, the applicant will need to provide documentation proving that they own the property, either fully or partially. Secondly, that income or capital must be brought into the country through financial institutions authorized to operate by the Central Bank of the Argentine Republic. Finally, that income must be sufficient to cover the total stay of the applicant and, if applicable, their immediate family members. Now, what is the minimum amount required to support this category? Immigration has addressed this issue and determined that the amount must exceed the sum of 5 minimum wages. This is a unit of measurement set by the Argentine state, and it's important to say it's variable. We remind you once again that in addition to the specific documents required for this category, the general documentation common to all categories that we have already discussed when talking about temporary or permanent residency must also be submitted, along with the general requirements we have also covered. For this, we suggest you check out the episodes available on the channel. With that, we conclude today's episode. If you need help with the application for this residency or advice on any other immigration-related matters in Argentina, you can contact us. Our contact details are in the description of this video. See you next time.